Reggie Carter never wanted trouble. He bought his modest two-story home in Oak Ridge Estates because it promised peace, quiet, and a clean start. The cul-de-sac was neat, the lawns trimmed, and the neighborhood rules seemed simple enough: respect your neighbors, respect property lines, and keep the peace. But there was one neighbor who didn't seem to believe rules applied to her: Martha Whitfield. Everyone in Oak Ridge knew her. Late 50s, loud voice, bright floral shirts, and a habit of marching up and down the street as if she owned it. She wasn't officially on the HOA board, but she didn't need a title. She acted like the entire community was hers to control. At first, Reggie tried to stay polite. But then it started. One Tuesday morning, as he left for work, he found a silver Lexus parked across his driveway. He thought maybe it was a delivery driver, or maybe someone had made a mistake. He shrugged it off, walked next door, and knocked. Martha opened the door with a fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, that's mine. I just needed somewhere to park while the landscaper's at my place," she said casually. "You don't mind, do you?" Reggie did mind. But he swallowed his frustration. "Next time, can you give me a heads up? I had to leave for work." She waved her hand as if brushing away a fly. "Oh, come on. Don't be so uptight. It's just a driveway." That was the first warning sign. 2 days later, it happened again. Then again. By the fourth time, Reggie left a note under her windshield. "Please stop parking in my driveway. This is private property." The next morning, the note was gone. And her car was right back in the same spot. Neighbors started to notice. A few whispered, a few laughed, but no one said anything. Martha had been like this for years, and most had learned to avoid conflict. But Reggie wasn't like most people. The breaking point came on a Saturday. Reggie had invited his brother over to help him move furniture. When they arrived, Martha's Lexus was once again blocking the driveway. That time, Reggie didn't knock. He didn't write a note. He made a call. Within 30 minutes, a tow truck rolled into Oak Ridge Estates. The loud hum of the winch and the screech of chains filled the air as the driver lifted Martha's shiny car off the pavement. By the time Martha stormed out of her front door, hair wild, slippers flapping, her Lexus was already hooked and ready to go. "You can't do this!" she screamed. "Oh, I can't," Reggie said firmly. "And I will if you ever park here again." Neighbors stood on porches, filming with their phones. Martha shrieked, cursed, and threatened to call the HOA president. But the tow truck didn't stop. As it drove away with her car, Martha's face turned a shade of red no one had ever seen before. That should have been the end. But Martha wasn't the kind of woman who let things go. The next morning, Reggie woke to find a letter taped to his front door. It was an HOA violation notice, claiming his grass was too long, his trash cans were visible, and his fence was non-compliant. He knew exactly who had written it. Later that afternoon, as he mowed his already perfectly trimmed lawn, he caught Martha standing across the street, arms crossed, smirking like she had just won a war. But Reggie wasn't intimidated. He thought to himself, if she wants a fight, she picked the wrong man. For a week, things went quiet. Then came the second strike. One Friday evening, Reggie returned home from work, exhausted, only to find Martha's Lexus in his driveway again. This time, she had parked it sideways, blocking not only his car but making it impossible for anyone to pass. It wasn't an accident. It was a message. Reggie stood there in silence, fists clenched. He could feel the eyes of neighbors watching from windows, waiting to see what he would do. He dialed the tow truck company again. By the time the truck arrived, Martha was ready. She ran outside, phone in hand, recording live video as if she were the victim. "This man is harassing me," she shouted at the camera. "He's targeting me because I'm a woman. Look at this, everyone, look how I'm being treated." But the tow driver didn't care. He hooked the car up while Martha screamed and flailed. Reggie stood calmly on his porch, arms crossed, refusing to say a word. As the Lexus disappeared down the street for the second time, Martha screamed one final warning. "You're going to regret this, Reggie! I'll make sure of it." The neighborhood went silent. Everyone knew this wasn't over. What they didn't know was just how far Martha was willing to go, and how far Reggie was prepared to push back. Because the next move would shock the entire community. The night after the second tow, Oak Ridge Estates buzzed like a hornet's nest. People whispered on doorsteps, phones lit up in private group chats, and speculation spread faster than wildfire. Some thought Reggie was a hero. Others muttered that he was reckless. But one thing was clear: Martha Whitfield wasn't done. By Monday morning, Reggie received 5 separate HOA violation notices in his mailbox. Cracked paint on the shutters. Excessive noise, reported at 3 a.m. Trash cans. Out too early. A supposed oil stain on his driveway. It was laughable. But it was also exhausting. Reggie marched into the HOA office, a beige building at the end of the subdivision. Behind the counter sat Joyce, the HOA secretary, her eyes darting nervously as she handed him the complaint stack. "Who filed these?" Reggie asked. Joyce hesitated, then whispered. "All from the same person. Martha." Reggie almost laughed. It was pathetic. But when he looked around, he noticed 2 board members whispering and glancing at him. He realized Martha wasn't just filing complaints, she was trying to poison the well, turning the HOA itself against him. That evening, Reggie sat on his porch, sipping coffee, when he saw headlights creeping slowly past his house. It was the HOA's private security patrol. Normally, they drove by once a night, barely glancing at the homes. But now, they slowed to a crawl, flashlights sweeping across his yard as if searching for evidence. Martha stood on her own porch, arms folded, smiling like a queen watching her guards march. Reggie gritted his teeth. She really thinks she's above the law. 2 days later, it escalated. Reggie returned home from work to find chalk lines drawn on his driveway. They circled imaginary. Oil stains, arrows pointing to the sidewalk cracks, notes scrawled. Non-compliant fence height. And there was Martha, recording everything with her phone, narrating loudly for whoever might be watching her live stream. This is what happens when people think they can break community rules. We won't tolerate disrespect in Oak Ridge. Neighbors stood awkwardly nearby, unsure whether to support her or to stay out of it. But Reggie noticed something else. For the first time, a few of them rolled their eyes. A few whispered. A few walked away. The cracks in Martha's empire were starting to show. The turning point came during a neighborhood barbecue. Reggie hadn't wanted to go, but his brother convinced him. Show your face. Don't let her control the narrative. So he went. Halfway through the event, Martha couldn't resist making a scene. She cornered Reggie near the grill, voice raised so everyone could hear. You don't belong here, she snapped. You're nothing but a troublemaker. Everyone's sick of you and your attitude. Reggie stared at her, calm and steady. Funny. That's exactly what people say about you. The crowd gasped. Martha's face twisted with fury. You think you're clever? You humiliated me. Twice. You think this is over? Reggie leaned in, voice low but firm. It's over when you stop trespassing on my property. For a moment, silence. The only sound was the sizzle of burgers on the grill. Neighbors stared, waiting for the explosion. And then Martha snapped. She shoved a plate of food off the table, sending hot dogs and chips scattering across the grass. You'll regret the day you moved here, she shouted. Phones came out instantly. Cameras rolled. Reggie didn't raise his voice. He didn't flinch. He just stood there, letting her rage speak louder than anything he could say. The video went viral in the neighborhood Facebook group by midnight. Comments poured in. Martha's lost her mind. Why is she obsessed with Reggie's driveway? He handled it better than I would have. By the next morning, the HOA board's inbox was flooded with messages, not against Reggie, but against Martha. Still, Martha wasn't finished. If anything, the backlash only pushed her deeper into desperation. The following week, Reggie walked outside to find a letter tucked under his windshield. No return address. Just a typed message. Back off. Or things will get worse. Reggie's stomach tightened. This wasn't just about parking anymore. That night, he installed cameras around his property. He wasn't paranoid, he was prepared. It turned out to be the smartest decision he ever made. 2 nights later, at 2:13 a.m., the motion sensor lights flicked on. The footage showed a shadowy figure creeping up his driveway. Keys jingled. Hands fumbled with the gate latch. And then, clear as day, Martha's face illuminated in the glare of the floodlight. She froze like a deer caught in headlights. Then she bolted. The next morning, Reggie downloaded the footage and saved it to multiple drives. He knew this was no longer a neighborhood squabble. This was harassment. But what he didn't know yet was that this was only the beginning. Because Martha had one last plan up her sleeve, something reckless, something dangerous. And when she unleashed it, the entire neighborhood would witness a showdown they would never forget. The neighborhood of Oak Ridge Estates woke up to chaos. Overnight, flyers had been slipped under every single front door. Bold red letters screamed across the top. Warning: Reggie Carter is a threat to our community. Below was a list of wild accusations, noise violations, vandalism, aggressive behavior. And at the bottom, Martha Whitfield's signature. By sunrise, the cul-de-sac buzzed with gossip. Some neighbors looked uneasy, others outraged. But most were simply tired. Tired of Martha's games. Tired of living in a neighborhood ruled by one woman's obsession. Reggie found the flyer on his porch, shook his head, and laughed bitterly. She's really losing it, he muttered. But the laughter didn't mask the truth. This was war. The setup. Reggie knew Martha wouldn't stop until she was stopped. The flyers, the threats, the late-night trespassing, it had escalated beyond pettiness. It was personal now. So, he called a lawyer. He showed her the video footage of Martha creeping through his yard. He handed over the anonymous note. He even forwarded the viral barbecue video. The lawyer's eyes widened. Mr. Carter, you have a harassment case. Maybe even grounds for a restraining order. Reggie nodded. He wanted peace, not revenge. But Martha had left him no choice. Meanwhile, Martha wasn't backing down. She doubled her efforts. She called an emergency HOA meeting, inviting the board and dozens of neighbors. Her goal? To turn the community against Reggie once and for all. When Reggie received the notice, he almost ignored it. But then he smiled. Let her dig her own grave. He decided to attend. And he wasn't coming alone. The meeting. That Friday night, the HOA clubhouse overflowed. Folding chairs lined the walls. Neighbors packed shoulder to shoulder, some curious, some furious, all waiting for drama. At the front stood Martha, clutching her papers like a queen holding court. She wore a smug smile, certain of victory. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice dripping with authority. We have a serious problem in Oak Ridge Estates. A man who refuses to follow the rules. A man who disrespects our community. A man who towed my car, not once, but twice. Gasps echoed. Whispers spread. Martha raised her hand dramatically. And that man, she said, pointing across the room, is Reggie Carter. All eyes turned. Reggie rose slowly from his seat. Calm. Collected. His presence alone silenced the whispers. Martha, he said evenly, are you finished? Not even close, she snapped. This community deserves to know who you really are. Reggie smirked. Funny. I was about to say the same about you. The twist. He reached into his bag and pulled out a laptop. With one click, the screen behind him lit up. The footage played. Martha, caught on camera at 2:13 a.m., sneaking into Reggie's yard. Martha, fumbling with the gate latch. Martha, frozen in the floodlight before running off. Gasps filled the room. Neighbors whispered, some covering their mouths in shock. Reggie let the video loop once more before turning back. That's your rule enforcer? Your moral compass? Breaking into my property in the middle of the night? Martha's face flushed crimson. She stammered, That's fake. Edited. He's lying. But it was too late. The damage was done. Then came the knockout blow. Reggie's lawyer, seated quietly in the back, stood and held up a folder. For the record, she said, we have filed for a restraining order against Ms. Whitfield. And based on this evidence, the police are reviewing potential charges for harassment and trespassing. The room erupted. Some cheered. Some shouted. But one thing was clear, Martha's reign was crumbling. The collapse. Martha lunged forward, shouting over the crowd. You're all blind. He's manipulating you. He's the problem, not me. But no one listened. One neighbor stood. Martha, enough. We've all had it. You've harassed him for months. You've made this place miserable. Another chimed in. You embarrassed us all at the barbecue. Now this? You're finished. Voices rose in unison. For the first time, Martha was outnumbered. Outshouted. Outpowered. She tried to speak, but the words dissolved into desperate shrieks. Her papers scattered to the floor, trampled by the very people she once controlled. And Reggie? He didn't yell. He didn't gloat. He just stood there, calm, letting the truth bury her deeper than any words could. The aftermath. By the following week, the HOA board voted unanimously. Martha was stripped of her position. The restraining order went through. She was banned from coming within 100 feet of Reggie's property. Her empire had collapsed, built on arrogance and entitlement, shattered by her own obsession. As for Reggie, he finally had peace. Neighbors who once watched silently now greeted him with nods of respect. Some even apologized for not speaking up sooner. But Reggie never forgot how close it came. How easily one person's obsession nearly turned his life into chaos. And when he sat on his porch at night, sipping coffee under the quiet glow of his porch light, he thought of one thing. She thought she could get away with it. She thought the rules didn't apply to her. But she was wrong.